Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Look at this. We have activity that has huge implications. This article is titled, BRICS member India launches foreign currency settlement system. This proves that things are moving forward for all of these other major regions in the world, moving away from SWIFT. So if SWIFT doesn't have global reach anymore, and everybody, you have the SIP system, I think it's called SIPs, in China, Russia has their system, India's launching their system. They have all these different connections to all these other places, especially in Latin America. Now you have this here in India. Then what is SWIFT without global reach? Folks, I'm telling you, if SWIFT wants to survive, there is no other way. This is why they have that overarching, what do you call it? That overarching blockchain, which is really just a paper blockchain. It's so shallow and hollow, but it's meant to connect to what they call the preferred DLTs of the banks. The banks choose a preferred DLT to connect to that SWIFT system, which means, and what they report is the value will stay primarily on those preferred DLTs, which could be the XRPL, could be something Ripple cooks up, a private thing, could be Hedera, could be Chainlink. Who knows? But the point is, if SWIFT wants to remain in the game, then they're going to have to connect to the neutral platform, the new financial system. SWIFT is not neutral. Hence why everyone's looking to they are replacing SWIFT actively. It's just in the West, they're not reporting it widely. They're downplaying it, which makes sense. I mean, SWIFT is a system of the West. They're going to take their side. They're going to back their horse. Makes perfect sense. But that also means that you can't go by what mainstream media is reporting on or telling you. I mean, you can do what you want, but I'm just saying in generally speaking, you can't trust that because their interest is in backing their horse, in supporting their systems, not in telling you the truth. Even if the other side is doing certain activities that's detrimental to the West, or going to offset what the West is doing or usurp the throne of the West. The West wouldn't tell you that, even if it is happening. So we have to do our research in order to uncover these things. Let's read this little tidbit. This is huge. This is huge because it shows where the world is still trending towards that way. All the while, once again, you have a massive problem brewing in the various financial systems. You saw what's going on in Japan recently, right? You see what's going on in the UK. You see what's going on in China, the US, thousands of banks just swaying in the wind, waiting to collapse. So you have all of this bubbling at the same time, and it's all playing right into the hands of bank coin holders. Simple as that. That's why, once again, they're all collecting bank coins now. And while they're doing that, they're getting in position to utilize the technology. Let me read this little tidbit here. The new system will eliminate delays that usually last 2 days for foreign currency settlements in the existing mechanism. This is Gift City's International Financial Services Center. And the same thing, you see, with this here, it also works the other way. These countries have to work with the West to some capacity. They have to, whether it's India or Russia. Russia sells oil still to this day to Europe. Like China is going to move product in the United States, made in China, right? They still need each other. So how do you move that value in an increasingly fragmented world? You're going to need that neutral system, XRPL based system, the new financial system, XRP, HBAR, Chainlink, Solana, etc. Right? That's the only way. That's why they're all getting in position. They know what's coming. They want to continue to do business and thrive in that. They want to continue to move value that, how do you say it? What's that phrase they have? They want to make illiquid things liquid. People have no idea how much that's going to impact the price on these things here. Let me finish reading this a little bit here. It says, So Gift City's International Financial Services Center will oversee the operations and provide real-time settlements. Several IT companies around the world, including BRICS countries, can send their currencies to India and will be converted in real time. That's not going to happen. In my humble opinion, what's going to happen, it was more realistic, the preferred DLT. This is another system where you're going to need preferred DLTs. So someone has, they built a system, these banks, on the XRPL or Hedera, and then that value, if they want to move it from that through this system, that's how it works. Or maybe they move it directly to the other banks, but the messaging aspect goes through these, like verification. That's what Swift was alluding to. That, sure, can you move value through the Swift system? Sure, you could. But at the same time, they primarily want to just do the messaging, ISO, all that type of stuff. They want to just really rely on that. And then the preferred DLTs still move that value directly between them. That takes a little bit of the liability off the shoulders of these particular systems. Let the banks deal with the value. So they want to continue that way. We'll see if that actually happens. But what's more pressing here, more significant here, is that they're going to move through preferred DLTs. Which ones are going to be the preferred DLTs? Who's deep in China? Who's deep in India? Do you remember? Bank coins are deep in India. Who's deep in Europe? Who's deep in the UK? Which ones? If you can whittle that down, then you're starting to realize who the winners are going to be. Who's been building there for years. Let's go here. I want to show you something. Wait, so you have that, right? So then we have this here, the new foreign currency settlement system, FCSS, launched by India at Gift City, has a direct impact on the efficiency of foreign currency transactions within the International Financial Services Center, but plays into the broader trend of seeking alternatives to traditional systems like SWIFT. The SWIFT era is over. The XRP era has just begun. You don't hear anyone talking about the new financial system in this way, or trying to. You can't replace the new financial system. You can't shirk it. You can't get around it. And because the banks are so particular about wanting to maintain control and power over personalized information, certain value of their clients, they're not going to trust that with anyone else, and they should not. Then they must, you understand, they must have preferred DLTs or preferred technology that they control, right? That value remains with them. Folks, I don't know how else to put that. That's huge. This is why Ripple continuously is talking about, we're working with all of these different banks. We're working with the central banks know it also. Tokenized value. How many central banks have come out in the last few weeks talking about, going against stable coins? Once again, we got to go there. They played everybody, didn't they? Now you have the UK. I don't have the article up here, but if you want, you can look this up, do a little Google search or Yahoo search or Bing. There was an article that came out either today or yesterday. And now the Bank of England, there was something they were saying about stable coins. It almost just slipped my mind. So they're pushing the idea of tokenization. Oh, so they're going to be putting limits now. That was what it was. They're going to be putting limits on how, like, the amount of stable coins or the amount of value in stable coins. They're going to limit it severely, and there has been backlash. You're going to see it on all the big websites, Reuters and etc. You can't miss it. It was big news. So if that's the case, I told you, if that's the case, then you can't move these massive sums globally. First of all, those stable coins don't have global reach. They don't. You can already see Europe said they're going to limit access to US dollar denominated stable coins. That's going to happen everywhere. You think China's going to allow the US denominated stable coins to just run amok over there? No. You think the US is going to allow China or Russia or somewhere else for their stable coins to run wild over here? No. So stable coins are severely limited, and now they're going to limit the amount that you can either hold or have, or the value. I mean, look into that yourself. Right? But it all boils down to severe limitations. All right. So then how you move that value? You don't get around the stable coins needing bridge currencies, needing liquidity. That means XRP is at the forefront. Liquidity tokens are at the forefront. You can't get around that. Those prices will go intergalactic because of that. They're exposing themselves. They're just not telling you directly. I mean, they're giving the information directly, but it must be interpreted. All right, so FCSS is primarily an initiative to improve the settlement process for foreign currency transactions locally within India's IFSC. Bypassing correspondent banks, previously foreign currency transactions by entities in the IFSC had to be routed through the traditional correspondent banking network. You see this? This is a common thing. The legacy system is over. They're going to hand that money over, folks. I just don't see everything they're telling us leans toward preferred DLT systems, and they're going to be flooded with value. Well, I mean, that's the most basic way to put it. It says, which involved multiple intermediary banks, nostro accounts. That's over. That's over. They're letting you know this has continued to this day. So the problems that XRP and all these other liquidity and bridge currency tokens solve exists today. No one solved it. That's what it means. So none of these other companies solved this. Swift didn't solve it. No one solved that. But XRP solves that right now. That just knowing that every day, it keeps that phrase in my mind of flip of the switch moment. Because it may really seem like that. Let's go down, scroll down here. Implications for Swift: reduced reliance on traditional routes. Swift is over. This is a wrap. They just don't, I don't know, the people, they don't want to let go of what was. I know it's difficult, but times change. Change is the only constant. It says by enabling local real-time settlement, the FCSS reduces the dependency on traditional, slow, and sometimes costly correspondent banking route that often underpins swift communicated transfers. This incrementally chips away at the volume and importance of the traditional Western-centric financial flows for certain types of transactions. Swift doesn't let go of this. Swift goes down fighting through the new financial system. They connect to the world through the new financial system. They try to maintain their positioning through the new financial system. And that means XRP is in the game, period. XRP, HBAR, Chainlink, Solana are in the game. What are they collecting right now in reserves? Solana, XRP, Bitcoin. They discuss Chainlink treasuries. Why? Why? So this is part of the BRICS trend, right? Next part, BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa are actively pursuing alternatives. We already know that. We've been covering it for years. We just don't do it too much anymore. And I don't think it's necessary. But this was major for sure. But let's continue on. This is what they're saying. So they have been pursuing alternatives to lessen their reliance on the US dollar, which that has continued to this day. Dollar dumping and dollar shirking has continued. They just don't cover it anymore. Just buried it. It says, and systems like SWIFT, which can be weaponized through sanctions. I told you it's over for them. Unless you want to be controlled. I mean, and even though the West has been fighting the West. It's been unbelievable seeing what's going on in the financial system. I'm not talking about politics, in the financial system. It's been unbelievable. So how far does that go? There's people in the West against the US dollar. Let's keep going. So India's efforts alongside China's SIPs. I knew it was a SIP system. I was remembering off the top of my head, CIPS, right? Russia's SPFS system for transfer for financial messages, which I was actually surprised at how extensive that network was. I didn't think it went that far. That was interesting. I'll just say that. My interest here is that they all have lost their global reach. They don't have global reach. They're siloed. Every single one of them is siloed. Every single one of them will hand their value over to the new financial system. That's my interest here. They need to transact with each other, but there's no trust. Where do you get the trust? Through the neutrality of the new financial system, through DLT technology, which verifies and then verifies, and they can verify multiple times that these things are real, that this value is real. It's going here. Traceability is there. Real world asset tokenization is there. So now let's cover a little bit of Bitcoin news while we have the time. Bitcoin's looking really good. Still some big things happening each day with Bitcoin. Here's another one. Europeans can now live on the Bitcoin standard with bring-in. As long as there's something positive happening surrounding Bitcoin, more people can access it. They can use it for different things. That's what I believe is good here. That means more companies. It's not about the regular people for me. More companies will want to build offerings like this, and it will bring big money into Bitcoin. It says here, Estonian-based Bringin has launched its full Bitcoin financial services platform after successful beta testing. The platform offers Eurozone users a comprehensive solution to save, store, send, receive, and spend Bitcoin in one simple app, allowing them to live the standard. All right, so be it. I don't know this platform. I'm not promoting this platform. I'm just reading an article about it. So I would approach everything with caution. You want to be honest. However, I will say once again, this allows Bitcoin to be utilized in a bunch of different ways to weave its way a little bit deeper into the legacy system. More companies will want to build things like this to capitalize on Bitcoin and interest. I think things like this are going to be very significant once mainstream media is covering Bitcoin consistently. I haven't seen that as of yet. Doesn't mean it's not happening. That's just what I've been seeing. I haven't seen it. I think you'll know when everything gets hot and they get the green light and, BlackRock and Vanguard say, go. You'll see them talking about Bitcoin positively everywhere. That price will start to rise, not just because of the people. I mean, you can sprinkle a little bit of retail money in there, sure. But more businesses will want it, small, medium-sized businesses, the ones that know and recognize that there's money on the table to be made easily. And it won't be that way forever. It will not. They'll be jumping in. I like to see in the future how central banks begin to approach Bitcoin. There's no way that they leave that value on the table, albeit they have tons of gold, right? So that's going to be interesting. But once again, even though I have tons of gold, I would not leave the value that Bitcoin brings to the table just laying there. I wouldn't. I'd grab that while you could. Once they start getting involved, you hear about central banks getting involved and multitude of commercial banks getting heavily involved in Bitcoin. That takes Bitcoin price to a completely different level. And I believe, you don't have to agree with me, not financial advice, just my humble opinion. I believe that's coming. That's a high possibility. It's not a guarantee, but I think it's highly likely. It says here, so key features of the platform include direct on-ramping up to self-custody, Bitcoin to Euro conversions through on-chain, it says 11 minutes, or Lightning Network 5 seconds, transactions, personal virtual IBAN accounts. So they're taking this seriously. If it encompasses all of this that it says. Users can gain access to both virtual and physical Visa debit cards with zero transaction fees. Really? Okay. Enabling Bitcoin spending anywhere Visa is accepted. All right. So Bitcoin is looking great in my humble opinion. Let's go here. I haven't covered silver in a while. We usually typically cover gold, and we've been only covering gold every once in a while because there's been so much Bankcoin and Bitcoin news as of late. That's why. But here's some silver. I told people silver was looking great for the future. I think it's going to really shock people a few years from now, but that's just my humble opinion. This article is titled "Silver Followed Gold to Reach a Historic High." The price rose to $49.54 per ounce. It says on Wednesday, silver jumped to a record high following an unprecedented rise in gold, which exceeded $4,000 per ounce earlier in the session. You know what's wild? All the catalysts are there for gold to go higher. And I say that in all humility. I do. And I don't care who gets gold, who doesn't get gold. It means nothing to me. I'm just a researcher, and I'm just telling you honestly what I see. The catalysts remain. Once those catalysts are gone, central bank buying, it stops. high value individuals stop loading up on gold. And I think we know why. There's a problem coming. They want to protect themselves just in case. And I think that same way. I take those same type of actions. I protect myself if I feel there's a threat, and there is in the financial system. Because of that, I think gold will go higher. But once that starts to wane, if they figure this out, if over the next few years, the new financial system kicks off and, maybe because they're making liquid value that was illiquid and businesses booming and they're making a lot of value. I don't think that they're this wise, but maybe they start to pay down some of the global debt. I don't think that's going to happen, but it's possible. Maybe some businesses who are experiencing full automation are doing just wonderfully. That's also definitely possible for those who are wise and figuring out what full automation means and how to implement it. Yes, if that's the case, Bitcoin could go higher. Gold definitely could go a little bit higher. And silver would go higher as well. But I will say, once those things start to go away, those catalysts go away, I would start to ask some really, really hard questions like, hey, maybe it's over. When is it over? Do I need to protect this value? Take profit? Things like that. Like, I would start asking myself those questions. And I don't think it's going to be difficult to see. The signs will be there and they should be right out at the forefront. And it should be easy to see, in my humble opinion. All right, so now that you have that information, what are you going to do with it? I know what I'm going to do with it. So until next time, everybody, let's get to the money.